Hey everyone, welcome into another episode of the Hockey Hub. Sophia and Kasey back with you. Kasey pulling double duty, co-hosting earlier this morning, but we're all about hockey on the show. That was for Boston has entered the chat. This is all about hockey, as you guys know. Kasey, we have a lot to get to, including some former Bruins making an impact. Brad Marchand, AJ Greer with a goal, Thomas Nosek with a sweet assist in the Florida Panthers, Carolina Hurricanes Game 1. So we're definitely going to be talking about that, previewing the Western Conference game a little later on. And we have a special guest, a very special guest, and I don't just say this about every guest, but someone I genuinely very much like interacting with, and that is Ryan Mougenel, the head coach of the Providence Bruins. So I think we're bringing him in right away. Yeah, we don't want to wait any longer, Mooj, to have you on. Thanks so much for joining us on this, I guess, early-ish morning, but thanks for being on our show.
Yeah, no, you got me out of yard duty this morning, so I got to thank you for that. So
okay, wait. So how long do we have? Can we keep you for the full hour so you can miss all the breaking and whatever you got going on?
For as long as you possibly can. That would be ideal.
You're putting us in the hot seat, Sophia. He's got to answer to somebody at the end of it all.
Yeah, no, you can blame it on me. If I could, I would have you on all the time. I don't want to. No, I mean it. I think you're just such a wonderful character and such a great person in terms of energy and character to have around a hockey team. You don't spend much time with the Boston Bruins, obviously in development camp and then, of course, training camp you're around. But the head coach of the Providence Bruins, so that's kind of where we're going to be focusing, Mooj. And first and foremost, big picture. We'll get into the details. But what do you make of this entire season for you guys and, how it ended? What would be your grading and your assessment of this year for you?
Yeah, that's, this year, first off the bat is we, as a group, we have the Bruins have done such an amazing job of bringing in people to Providence that are just as high quality that I've been around, in the Patrick Browns and the Vinny Lettieri's, and just like a really special group, a group you want to be around all the time. It was a tough ending for us. The guys played their hearts out for each other, and it was really an enjoyable year. Selfishly for the coaching staff, we had a lot of growth from a lot of our young players, and I'm not sure about the stat. You might even know. I think there was only maybe 2 players that didn't get up that were on NHL contracts. So an interesting year in the fact that a lot of guys went up and got a coffee in the NHL, and we had guys that come down and really grow their games, like in Matthew Poitras. And just a special group. Very proud of them and who they are and their growth as people. It's been amazing to be a part of, that's for sure.
I love that. I've always credited AHL coaches because I feel like the task at hand is differently. You never know when the call-ups are coming. You might lose a couple of your starters to go up to the NHL team in the drop of a dime, and I feel like that only makes you a better coach. What's that process like for you to, have to restructure your lineup, but also to continue the development of these guys to be NHL ready?
Well, that's nice of you to say, because I tell my mom all the time I'm growing as a coach, but like I tell the guys, charter flights will change you. I think sometimes when
we're going to try to bring him back. Ryan Mougenel, of course, head coach of the Providence Bruins. We'll give him a chance to call back in. But what he was saying, charter flights will change you. I actually have a funny story. Maybe we can kill some time with this while he calls in.
Share.
So Connor Clifton, Kasey, former Boston Bruin, and he worked his way up through Providence. And one of the funniest quotes you would get, like, he was such a genuine, sweet kid, a hardworking hockey player, and but very, like, I don't want to say aloof, but just not used to the media, at least at the beginning. He was just like super innocent, like wide-eyed kid, answered every question. And the media in Boston is generally, I keep screwing those 2 words up, very good. But, sometimes they'll ask tough questions. Anyway, he wasn't super aware of that. But one of his early interviews, he was in a scrum, and I think he'd spent 5 or 6 games in the NHL from the AHL, and the guys in the media were asking him, they were like, so what's the biggest difference from the NHL to the AHL? And most guys will be like, the speed, the checking game, the quickness of the passing, XYZ. And he's like, dude, to the media, he's like, the food is so much better in the NHL. Like, that was his answer. And then he's like, the planes are awesome. I don't have to take buses. And it was just such a genuine, like, this is sweet, because they've got the chefs and they've got, all this cool stuff. So I just thought that was one of the funniest things, because, you'd think the answer was like on the ice, but he was talking about how, like,
everything else that played into it. I love that, because I was always curious. You're seeing these funny stories of, like, guys like running through the streets with their luggage who just got the call up from the AHL to the NHL. So I was just like, I wonder what that chaos is really like, and what they focus on being like, I got this opportunity, but that's so cool that it wasn't the on the ice stuff. It was everything else that was like, this is amazing.
Yeah, he was like, I don't have to take 12-hour bus rides. And, we forget about that. I mean, I think we do. I'm sure the guys who've played in both leagues will never forget that. But it is so different. Like, you're chartering on a plane. You have, wonderful, healthy snacks. And I don't actually know. I know college hockey for sure. I talked to a lot of the college guys. The programs are elite. Like, they compete with the NHL. The dressing rooms are elite. The staff, the prep, the gyms, the meals, like, all that. So it's like the NHL used to be this huge leap from minors, to OHL to CHL to NCAA, was like this huge jump. But now some programs are competing with the professionalism of the NHL. But anyway, that being said, you're taking buses in the AHL and you're playing crazy weekend games. Like, the schedule is so different. And I don't know where Mooj was going with that when he said a charter plane will change you, but I'm sure he sees guys kind of go up and down and either get hungrier, because they're like, okay, I had a taste and I want more, or maybe get a bit deflated. Like, I don't know. Like, this is more of like a human psychology thing, but do you think if it was you, it'd make you hungrier to stay up? Oh, one sec. I think we're getting him back.
As soon as he was saying what his mom would say to him, he ended up tapping out on us.
He tapped out. The yard work was calling.
I know.
Mooj, I'll let you finish your answer, but I was just telling Kasey really quick, when Connor Clifton came up, he had an interview and someone asked him what's the biggest difference between the AHL and NHL, and we thought he was going to say like speed or whatever, and he was like, oh, the food and the meals here and the bus is so much better. And so he, like, that's such a cliffy answer at the beginning. It was hilarious. But to your point, you were saying charters will change you. So where were you going with that thought?
Well, I just think it's such a good, the one thing the American League teaches you is gratitude too. And we talk about that being where your feet are, and that's real important. I think the other part of it is what's real important is, like, these guys have worked extremely hard to get to where they are, and that's not to be lost in it as well. You've earned that right to be with the NHL players and to enjoy it. I know it's hard when guys go up. There's so much going on. There's nervousness, there's anxiety, there's so many different human elements that go into it. So we talk about being in the moment and enjoying it. And we had a lot of those moments this year where guys went up and got their first taste of the NHL. And, selfishly for me, Sophia, I never played in the NHL. So it's really rewarding to see guys go up and fulfill their dreams.
On that note, we definitely want to talk to you about prospects, but I'm going to jump ahead to one of our questions now because it's fitting. Just kind of your coaching style. Like I said, and I'm not trying to, blow up your head, but you're such a personable guy. And from the reviews I get from players, it's like you're just a great coach and a great friend, which is probably easier to do on an AHL level than NHL level. I mean, you could tell me. But what is your coaching style and like a relationship that you maintain with players?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head as well. It is a different beast at the NHL level. And, I've had a lot of opportunity to be around some amazing coaches in my career, the Pete DeBoers, the Jim Montgomerys, the Joe Sackos. And that's a little bit of a difference is the American League's there to help guys get out of it or grow their game. I'm a big believer and I want guys to be comfortable. I understand the anxiety and the pressure to do well. And, my dad said it best, like if you're in sales and you're beating a guy over the head with a ruler, it doesn't mean he's going to sell more. We're there for them. We want them to know that, part of the process is we're in it with them. We want them to have success. And, again, I'm surrounded by such amazing people, and Adam McQuaid's, and I know you guys have all had opportunities to talk to Adam. He's just a real special guy, and I just think we do a real good job as a group, from my assistant coaches to the development to scouts to have messages for players. And listen, it's not always warm and fuzzy. Sometimes those hard messages have to be said, and it's taken me a while to develop that. It's not easy for me. I might have a different perspective in the game where, I do want guys to be comfortable in their surroundings. It doesn't mean that you preach to them not to be uncomfortable in those situations. It's just human nature. But, I lean on the guys quite a bit. I genuinely really enjoy being around them. There's something to be said about guys in the American League that have, real energy. They're not tainted by the ups and downs of the seasons at times. So I enjoy that part of the game, Sophia. I genuinely like being around people. Ask me in another 10 years, maybe that's not the case when I'm sitting on the dock all by myself up north in Ontario. But for the most part, I really enjoy the players.
I think that all the call-ups probably speak to the great coaching too. Before we do dive into the prospects, as Sophia mentioned, they talk a lot about there being a tale of two personalities when it comes to hockey players on the ice and off the ice. Is there an NHL player on your roster right now who, like, his on-ice personality is very different than when you see in the locker room or off the ice?
Ooh, that's a tough one. we have, the one guy that I was had a good, strong relationship with was Trent Frederick. And Freddie's just, he plays the game a certain way. And then, Christmas Eve, he would send a text like, make sure you spoil the girls tomorrow, Mouge. It's just, for the most part, hockey players are special people. We've been really fortunate with the Bruins to have just awesome people around us, and Sophia can probably vouch for that. From the coaches down to the players, they have tons of personality, and we encourage them to show their personality. That's for sure.
I can definitely vouch for that, and I've said this, so I'm not going to get into the whole backstory. I've said this on the podcast before, but the experience I had with other teams versus when I came to the Bruins, I was like, whoa, this is different. This is different. It really made me fall in love with hockey again. And again, not going to make this about me, but I fell out of love for a little while. I just wasn't having the best time in the league, and then the Bruins made me fall in love again with the character and the people. So I 100% agree. I want to dive in just a little bit with some of the guys. I'm going to start with Matt Poitras, just because he had a pretty good NHL taste, and then there was this injury and he had to rehab, and I couldn't imagine the emotional ride for him. But what did you make of his time with you over the last year? And yeah, maybe we can talk a little bit if he's had ups and downs in terms of motivation or not, or maybe discouragement because he wants to get back up there, or how did he do, and what was your assessment of Poitras?
Well, that you said it exactly kind of how it went. There obviously was a level of disappointment on him coming down, and a guy that for me has such tremendous upside as a young player. You forget how young Matty is at times. His game grew tremendously in the American League. He probably, scored a lot more in the American League even than he did in junior. And we forget last year ideally he probably should have been in junior based on his age and where he was, but he had such a good camp. We valued what he brought to the NHL club, and he really had a really strong start to a season last year, and the injury definitely set him back. The one message to Matt was, sometimes when you struggle and you're in the NHL, it's so hard to get out. The American League's there to help you use tools to get out of that struggle. And he not only came out of the struggle when he got sent down, he really flourished and really grew his offensive game and grew a certain maturity to his game. There's things he does with the puck that nobody does. He sees the game at a different pace. Some of the things we had to identify and get better was obviously, the digging in his own end and celebrate that for what it was, and understand that sometimes when you play in the NHL, it's about paying it forward. And, you go in and have a good offensive shift, and then it's really setting it up for the next line. And those messages of being a young pro were there. There were teaching moments with Matthew. Again, special kid. You see it in his face. He's always got a smile. He's always got a smile on. He loves hockey. But for me, the growth in his game, he's invested in his game, and he's going to be that much better in the NHL next year.
There's another name that fans want to learn more about, Fraser Mitten. We acquired him by the NHL trade deadline, and some friends in Toronto said, you're really going to like this kid, and he's been really sweet in terms of what he has said when he first got here, joining the Providence Bruins and then getting that call-up opportunity. What have you seen out of him thus far?
Well, it's funny, being from Toronto, I got obviously a lot of text messages from a lot of different people about Fraser, and the first thing was, Mouge, this kid is special. He's a leader. He's a fantastic kid. You're going to love him. And from the minute he stepped in the dressing room, he had a certain presence. The guys instantly fell in love with him. I know the coaching staff fell in love with him. He is a little bit of a throwback. He plays the game the right way. He's going to have a long career. His message at his exit meeting was, let's get a little bit more polish on your game. You can take chances. You don't have to play safe all the time. He's really responsible player, super coachable, that gets concepts. He picked up our D zone right away. And, in our system, we put a premium on centers. He's going to be a real good player for the Bruins. I can't say enough about the kid. He arguably was one of our best players in the playoffs. And I'm really excited to see the summer that he has in him, and his growth as a first-year guy. I can't imagine this guy when he turns 24, what a force he's going to be.
We've got a couple more guys we'd love your thoughts on, but quick, I just, as you were talking, I was thinking about obviously your assessment, and Fraser Mitten is definitely an NHL hopeful. That's why that trade was made. How often do you communicate with the coaching staff in Boston about the guys you have? Is it weekly, daily? Is it only when the coaches feel like reaching out, or how often are you guys chatting?
Well, the communication I think is vital, and Chris Kelly and I talk on our way into work, or if we're on the bike first thing in the morning, we talk daily. A lot of it is player driven, who's playing well, who can help them, messages maybe that I can help with guys, and vice versa. So the communication with Kels is there daily. Joe, we talked probably weekly, and then the communication with Evan Gold, my GM, and Sweens on, where guys are, how they're feeling. It's a constant communication. It's by committee. I mean, Adam McQuaid has such a good feel for players. He's always got his finger on the pulse. He knows who to talk to. But there is a lot of communication. It's something that I think we do as a group extremely well in the messaging to our players, because that's real important too.
Absolutely.
Do you have a follow-up?
Go ahead, Kasey. No, go ahead, Kasey. Go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, maybe instead of us running through each prospect, is there what's the tell when you think a guy probably has the most potential to join an NHL roster sooner rather than later? Because there's just a number of these guys that started getting those opportunities towards the end of the Bruins season, and some people are, curious, is it going to be Lysell? Is it going to be Poitras again? Is it going to be Mitten being able to jump up?
Yeah, that's it. It's funny. We talk about it all the time when you just know, I knew when Jeremy Lauzon was ready to go, I knew we would never see him again. The difference is a lot of those guys that we've had in the past have been, 3 years into their pro career, and they had over marinated and they're ready for the NHL. A lot of our young guys are still really, really young, and they're still growing their game, but there is a tell. You just know immediately once they start, dominating the American Hockey League. It's usually that's probably the last time we're going to see them. the way the season kind of panned out this year, it was about opportunity, and it was about getting players games in a real good place before they got up there. So that was a mandate from us as a staff. We want our players to go up and be in a spot to be successful and feel really good about their games. In years past, I think that's been a real strong suit of our depth, whether they're young players or older players. Everybody's gone up and really showed really well. I think about a guy like, Michael Callahan, who we got out of Providence College, and we had for 3 years, and his growth was just expedited in the American League, and really, changed his identity. And when he went up, I thought he played extremely well for the Bruins. His game was in such a good place when he went up there. I knew when he went up, the coaching staff was going to really like him, and that's what happened. That's usually not that we have all the answers, but sometimes it's very visible. And he was one of those players when we knew his game just going to translate extremely well.
I'm going to throw one more at you, but I definitely, before we let you go, I want to talk about lake life a little bit too, and we've got a couple more hockey things. So I promise we'll get there, but only because, first round draft pick, and waited a while to see Fabian Lysell. What's been your read on him and excuse me, this year? And I'm glad he got a stretch of games that he can, kind of relax into some NHL hockey at the end of the season. But what did you make of Fabian's development over your time with him?
Well, again, Fabian was a 19-year-old kid right out of junior who, again, had to figure out what he could do and what he couldn't do. He's a kid with a ton of skill. He's got a mindset of he always wants to make an impact on the game every shift. And sometimes that's, in pro hockey, sometimes the play is not to make a play. And there was definitely a balance in his first couple of years and understanding that things he got away with in years past didn't translate. My message to Fabian was what he does really well is translatable to the NHL. And you saw it in some games with Boston. His speed is obviously very visible. His offensive mind is there. Growing his confidence in the game and learning to get inside guys. Being first to pucks are messages that Fabian was really starting to embrace by, the end of his time in the American League. He's a player that I'm glad he got some runway in the NHL, because he's one of those players to see what he can and what he can't do. And I think he's got a bright enough mind to really start embracing that and understand what his strengths are going to be in the NHL.
Are we pivoting some lake life?
Oh, no, I was going to say we had one more guy. I feel bad, though. I'm we're getting all these, scouting reports from you, but I got to ask you about one more guy. Dan, I think I'm saying Locmelis, right? Locmelis?
Locmelis.
Am I saying, how do you say his last name?
Locmelis. I'm the worst guy to ask. Trust me, my assistant coaches would be howling that you're asking me about pronunciations. But Don's is, man, this kid... One, he's full of life. I don't know if you've had a chance to talk to him. He's a guy you want to go on a fishing trip with. That's for sure. I'll tell a little story. So when he left college, I put all our staff and everybody on a text chain, and Ryan Mougenel, welcome to the team, excited to work with you, and then Ryan Mougenel, head coach, and then the trainers. Well, trainer, Rob Tagle, and we go through the list, and then he wrote, really excited to work with you guys. Don Locmelis, hockey player. So he's a great kid. He's got a great mind. He's got great skills. He was sensational when we got him out of school. Had a real connection with Matty Poitras. He's playing fantastic at the Worlds, playing against men. I don't know if you caught that, but I think Sidney Crosby really gave him a shout out on his game, which is pretty special in itself. So another guy our scouts did a real good job of identifying some of those attributes that we value as an organization. Really excited about where this can go for him. Probably is going to need some time in the American League, but one of those guys that's probably going to push for a job out of training camp. he just does a lot of things really well.
I'm so excited about your analysis and of these guys. So thank you for kind of sharing that, because I think a lot of Boston Bruins fans, see what they see, and I'm sure they're watching your games as well. But just getting it from the head coach is great. Like I said, I wanted to tease a little bit of lake life, but really quick, are you watching? Do you take a break from hockey? Are you watching this postseason? And I haven't kept track of like who's been on your former roster, who's like who's playing or not. I know obviously Freddie there with the Oilers. But have you been watching it all?
I have.
Okay.
I have two really. I've got two close friends in Steve Spott and Pete DeBoer, my former roommates when we all worked in San Jose. So I talked to their assistant coach quite a bit, and I've been in the American League for quite some time. There's a lot of kids still playing, and again. I talk to the guys a lot about this, and I think it's a big part of it is you always want people rooting for you. And, Trent Frederick's a guy I'll never stop rooting for. Always a huge fan of the person. And not to say he's the only one. There's tons of guys like that. And that's the one ability, I think, Soph, in the American League is you can forge those friendships. I'm here for them. Vice versa, they were there for me in a couple situations, even this year. That it's a great community to be a part of. I'm just very grateful that I get to spend time with these guys daily. It's a pretty good gig.
All right,
well, I'm glad you're watching. We're following along, obviously, as fans too, and part of the podcast. You don't need a sales pitch to me, because I know that lakes are the best. But before we let you go, paint us a picture of how you spend your summer in beautiful Ontario on the lakes. I believe you're on Bancroft, right? Somewhere around there.
Yeah, we're on Lake Baptiste. It's northern. I don't know. So if you and I are both Toronto people. I don't know if you say Northern Ontario, if that would be a true assessment. It's about 2.5 hours north of Toronto. And yeah, it's just been the family cottage. It's something, again, super grateful that I get up there and spend time with tons of family and friends. And my girls love it up there. It's, the day school's over, we're usually packed up the car and we're heading up north. So it's good to get away. It's good to kind of reset. It's really good to, see friends that you don't get to see during the season. And we have a lot of fun up there. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, if I'm around, I'll pop by for a visit and have a beer on the dock with you and the fam. But thank you so much for joining us. I hope we got you out of enough yard work. If you ever need to get out of more, just give us a call. You're welcome to be on our show anytime, okay?
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Mooch.
Cheers. All right.
Bye.
All the best. Bye-bye.
All right, guys, we're going to send it to break, and we'll be back on the other side talking Game 1 between the Panthers and Carolina Hurricanes. We'll be right back after this.
Now, Cam and Don, in their respective roles as president and general manager, have proven that they can take a franchise that has missed the playoffs and build one for sustained success. It is my opinion that we can do it again, and this time get over the hump and become a Stanley Cup champion.
All right, welcome back into the Hockey Hub here on Nesson. Kasey and Sophia walking you through all the news taking place here, and we finally get an update on what's going on with the GM situation. 2 years added for Don Sweeney's contract. And before I pick your brain on that, Sophia, because you have given us all the insight when it comes to this team and just kind of the pulse and what it means to put this puzzle piece in place, let's break this down. We've got Cam Neely on Don Sweeney saying Don has navigated a disappointing period for our club with conviction, purpose, and a clear vision toward the future of the Boston Bruins. He made difficult decisions around the trade deadline with the confidence they will pay dividends as we craft a path back to contention. He's continuing to follow that track with a robust and thorough search for our club's next head coach, while also preparing for the upcoming NHL draft and free agent signing period. I am confident in the plan he has followed these past few months and excited for what's to come for our team. The expectations in Boston have always been clear. here. It's about winning championships. So before we get to Don Sweeney's response, what was your reaction to this, Soph?
Just the contract signing. I think it was needed, and I wasn't like, oh my God, like I wasn't shocked. I think it's a safe amount. If the management and staff and Cam Neely and Charlie Jacobs aren't 100% sure, which, it's like a good number. It's not a 5-year extension. It's not a 1-year extension. So I think it's a good number, and I do think it was necessary, which I don't want to get into it right away. I'll let you lead me there. But in terms of finding a head coach, that I think this all makes sense, all adds up.
Yeah, it kind of helps put things into place. And Adam and I were kind of chatting about it earlier on Boston's End of the Chat. In my personal opinion, it's just kind of like one less thing to worry about while you're going through a retool, because we talked about some head coaches that potentially needed that security to know, okay, who's kind of at the helm here before we sign on to what's coming up next. Don Sweeney did say, I'm very appreciative to Charlie, the entire Jacobs family, and to Cam for their continued trust and support. It's an honor to be part of a franchise with such a storied history and passionate fan base. I fully understand and embrace the responsibility that comes with this role. Our fans have high expectations for this team, and so do I. The collective goal is to build a team that makes Bruins fans proud and ultimately brings another Stanley Cup back to Boston. I like the closing of that because you just mentioned how Boston and the Bruins made you fall in love with hockey again. So just like in context, like what this club means and the fan base, because getting to Boston, it was very obvious how passionate this fan base is and how important, the community and the rallying and everything being in place means to the fans.
Yeah, absolutely. And they will not let you get away with anything. Like, they know just as much as you do and I do, and as much as some, Don Sweeney does in some cases. And that's maybe a bit of an exaggeration, but like they're reading everything and they're scouting everything. And so they're not letting you get away with medium effort. Let's put it that way. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I wasn't super surprised that this was happening. I know that Don Sweeney has received a lot of negative flack for certain moves, I guess, he's made as a GM, but I do want to counter that opinion, just offer people like a different, food for thought when it comes to this. He has also made some unbelievable moves and gotten players that we didn't think he'd be able to get. I'm thinking, especially in my time around the trade deadline, some like huge signings that if things had gone different, like it wasn't because of these players that things just didn't go well for the Boston Bruins in the postseason, but he had really built rosters to set them up for a Stanley Cup championship year in and year out over the last few years. And then we've obviously seen some bad luck, and some weird endings for the Boston Bruins before they were supposed to happen. But people forget that. And I think that's because it didn't get the length, like in terms of a first round exit. That was a big surprise in Patrice Bergeron's time, and then obviously getting bounced again by the Florida Panthers in the year prior. So those trade deadline acquisitions, which is like very difficult to do, in the way he does them, for not giving up that much, like those are really big moves that only a few GMs around the league are able to do that. And I of course think playing for the Spoke B helps keep some of the guys after a trade deadline, sign over here. He's gotten flack for some signings, obviously the Jeremy Swayman contract, drafting, and those are very fair because they're very important roles. Those are very fair, I guess, criticisms and coach firings, but I think they are dominating the things that he's able to do a little more than they should. It's like when you go on Yelp or whatever, and you go to a place or a restaurant, you're usually not leaving a review if you've had a great time. You're only leaving a review if you didn't like it. Like very few people go out of their way and be like, hey, this was awesome. They'll complain. And so I think that's what we're kind of getting here is we've taken for granted what he's been able to do. And fine, Jeremy Swayman aside, for years, he was able to build rosters that guys were maybe making a little less than they could have gotten, but in order, like the believability, the buy-in to make room for a team and other players so that they can contend every year. He's really good at that. And if you talk to some of the players, obviously most of them want max money, but they also understand that max money doesn't mean much if you're not playing for a team that's contending all the time. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think Don Sweeney's done an excellent job of that. And Yeah, I mean, this is just me kind of offering a little bit of a different perspective, not to say that some of the criticism isn't valid, but I think people are kind of like, this is crazy. You know, some of the criticism is like, this is crazy. He's fired a couple coaches. He's also done a lot of good things, and not for nothing, Team Canada has a lot of options when it comes to who they want in their head office. And the Olympics were canceled because of COVID, but Sweeney was going to be a part of that. The Four Nations tournament, like, he's consistently participating in Team Canada tournaments, and that's not a small thing.
Yeah. And at least the biggest thing being that hopefully it's the puzzle piece that starts to get us on track for who the next head coach is going to be, because we've talked about it a lot here on Hockey Hub, Boston Senator Chad, just NESN in general, and it may have swayed some coaches from potentially entertaining the conversation of wanting to come to Boston, because you got to know who the head guy is at the helm to get things done. So I think 2 years is a testimony to, let's see what happens during this retool. Let's see how fast the guys that need development get up to speed. Let's see what veterans step up and where the vocality lies. I think it's interesting to see that the captain conversation is going a couple of different ways, and Razor gave us some different insight. You know, we could see maybe a couple of A's and just see who steps up over the next course of the year and the season and stuff. So it is important to point out the positives, because at the end of the day, it's all hands on deck to figure out what's next and what to anticipate for the upcoming move. But do you think that we finally will get some head coaching news soon?
I mean, I hope soon, but again, I think because I do think one of the candidates we've mentioned a couple times is currently working. So I think we'll just have to, I think it might be a kind of a postseason thing, depending on elimination and who makes it. So absolutely. I mean, I obviously I don't have insight, to be honest with you. I haven't talked to Don Sweeney about like who is in the final five or whatever it is. I don't know that. We're all kind of speculating.
Yeah, we're all speculating.
Of, you know, what's happening over there. But if one of them is still playing with the team, we're not playing, but sorry, working with the team, then we might have to wait a little longer. And if someone who's not is running away with it, we'll find out obviously soon enough. But I wouldn't be surprised if we waited for this round to be over and even potentially the final before we had our decision. So it could be days, it could be weeks. I'm leaning towards weeks for sure.
Sounds like good news to me. You want somebody with that winning caliber to come join the B squad. But don't go anywhere. Sophia and I continue to talk about, I don't know, coaches that could potentially still be in the postseason. We got to get into these Panthers versus Hurricanes matchup and so much more here on the Hockey Hub. So join us on the other side of this quick break.
Welcome back to Hockey Hub. Sophia and Kasey here with you. Round one was so fun with all the games, and I know this is what happens. Teams get eliminated, but I kind of missed the excitement. Just one game a night to keep track of, which is fine. It's fine. That's what happens. But we only have one game to talk about that happened last night. We'll look ahead to the Western Conference Final in a second, but we're going to start in the East. Carolina Hurricanes against the Florida Panthers. I was just about to say Washington Capitals, but they're out. And a blowout. I mean, yeah, you know, can I call it a blowout? Do you agree? But a blowout by the Florida Panthers. What did you make of that game before we get into the nitty gritty?
I would actually probably align with a blowout. It's funny, I was walking my dog this morning and my neighbor, he played college hockey. We just had some random awkward conversations in the elevator. So we run into each other at 6 o'clock this morning and he's like, did you catch the game last night? And I'm like, yeah, I did. And I was like, I didn't expect the Panthers to have such a formidable performance out the gate. Game one, two teams with really good defenses. I was expecting a little something different, right? And he looks at me and he's like, no, I was expecting it. So as the conversation continues, long story short, I find out that he is a Panthers fan from Fort Lauderdale. And I was like, oh gosh, we're having a rough conversation here. Like, I thought we were looking at all angles, but yeah, I mean, a high energy first period, and you thought that it was going to be probably on the more low scoring end, and then just like the calls start flying out. Of course, whether you sideline with the calls or didn't sideline with the calls, that's a whole different conversation. But it's just the fact that the Florida Panthers are that overwhelming team. Like, they're just sticking to the identity of flustering in so many ways. And I thought it was funny that Twitter was like, Panthers win the mental battle yet again.
Yeah, and I'm just looking here at the, I'm going back to just like the results throughout the whole playoffs, and I'm pretty sure I'm so bad. Like, I need to write everything down. I'm so bad at looking at a screen and being sure about something, especially when it's splayed all over the place.
I write it down and put it in my phone. I just don't trust it. I'm still a writer.
Yes, no, same. And I like to look at things, but I'm pretty sure that the Hurricanes have not allowed 5 goals in the postseason at all. I see a 5-4 win, so it was 4 against the Devils.
Anderson's only allowed 12 goals over the postseason in totality. So yeah.
Yeah, and looking at the last couple, obviously shutting out the Caps for one of them, holding the Caps down to 1 and then 2 in the last 3 games. And like, yes, we know that Frederik Andersen's numbers, as you mentioned, unbelievable. Yeah. So that 5 goals was not to be expected. I also thought it was going to be like back and forth, a lot closer, especially in Carolina. Like just scary. Like the Florida Panthers are scary. However, really quick, I'll counter my thought with another thought. We've seen this a lot of times too in the postseason. I remember specifically with the Bruins. I think it was game 2 years ago when they won like, I don't know, 6-2 or 7. Like, I think they even had 7 with an empty netter. It was big over the Panthers. And everyone's like, oh, statement game. And then they won the series. Like this, the Bruins didn't, they lost. But I'm saying you have these like big blowouts, and sometimes it is a statement game, and sometimes it's just game 1. And if the Panthers, which, they have enough NHL experience and playoff experience, are thinking, right, this doesn't mean anything to them after that game. It's a new series. It's a new game every single day. But yeah, I mean, obviously if you're a Panthers fan, you'd rather be on that side versus the Carolina Hurricanes side. What struck me, and Kasey, I know you got to pay attention to all the things going on in sports, so I don't know if you caught this, but I'm just going to talk about the post-game interviews.
Oh my gosh, yes, because I love Paul Maurice.
Okay, yeah, so like on TNT, we know the guys like to have a lot of fun. They had AJ Greer, former Bruin, scored a goal. They had him on, asked him about the Brad Marchand fight, which we'll talk about later. Didn't want to answer that. But as usual, the guys are trying to be playful. And they got a little playfulness out of AJ Greer talking about hanging out on like rooftop pools and like catching some sun. And then Jackie Redmond interviewed, oh my God, I actually forgot who it was. But anyway, had an interview and also kind of threw in like the rooftop pool, the like getting some sun in between series and stuff like that. And I know, like, this is not a knock on those answers. Like, I like the playfulness, but it is the postseason. It is round 3. It is the Eastern Conference Final. And how relaxed they were it's not a knock. It's more of like, other teams should be scared. Like, this team is just chilling. They are, super, and sorry, I feel just stressed about like this being clippable and someone taking this out of context. I don't mean that they're just chilling and relaxing and not, grinding and max effort night in and night out. We see that. But I'm just saying in terms of like the aura, it's just like they're like, we've been here before.
They're unbothered.
We know what we're getting. Yeah, say that again.
They're unbothered.
Yes, perfect.
Yes.
You can say it way better than I'm like rambling over here. But am I right on that, or like how do you feel about that?
No, you're 100% right on that, because I remember, maybe it's the Florida thing as to why the conversation keeps circling back to like, what do you do in between games in the sun? But TNT, they asked Carter Verhaeghe, like, do you have to forewarn your opponents about sunburn? And it's like he didn't even know how to respond to it. He was just kind of like, no, I mean, you're probably going to catch one at first if you come down here and think you're just going to hang out in the sun. Like, we all caught a burn as well. But yes, they come off very unbothered in a number of ways, and maybe it just speaks to their confidence and just there's so many confident players that blur the line of like confident and cocky. I mean, I think that's why we talk so much about the Florida Panthers as well. But I like that they have that approach, because just back to the mental war that they can win over anybody. Like when you're going against somebody that you feel like you cannot affect, that you cannot deter, you can't get in their head, I think that alone already kind of just shifts things. So I couldn't agree more that that's like exactly how they come off. And it's funny too, because Paul Maurice in his post-game presser was talking about the fact that he was responding to a reporter who was like, you guys have a great record when you get out first, what does that mean to you or whatever? And he basically was like, means nothing, because we had to climb ourselves out of a hole versus the Toronto Maple Leafs. So at the end of the day, game is a game. So everything about their report is just so unfreaking bothered. I wish I could be that confident in all things in life.
Right? No, I know. And I think that's going to be our word for the remainder of their time in the postseason. And we're going to follow to see if like they still seem unbothered, but that's a perfect way to put it. And again, like if you're facing them, that's kind of scary. It's like they don't seem to get rattled. They don't get too high. They don't get too low, which is very important in the postseason. Someone who acted a little bothered last night, though, Brad Marchand, did not like Shane Gostisbehere tossing that puck at him.
Nope.
Or it wasn't a toss. It was definitely a shot. I loved it. I think our producer, Brendan, I don't remember, Brendan, what word you used. Was it silly? I don't remember. What did you say?
Funny.
Funny. He said funny. Okay, yeah. I loved it. I didn't think it was funny at all. I mean, it was entertaining. My favorite thing, by the way, and we can like break this down. Brad Marchand, we know he's chippy. He has his reputation around the league, but he doesn't like often drop the mitts. Like he'll get in there, he'll get in scrums and stuff like that. But this was like a full-on fight. I replayed it over and over again when he was throwing punches, and the deke he made, like the deke was so well timed, and I was like, dude, that was awesome. Like it wasn't even the punches that he was able to throw. It's like how he dodged that one. And anyway, I loved it. I loved every moment about it. I don't know what, what's his name? AJ Greer didn't want to answer to it. I think it's like a normal part of playoff hockey that I want to see. I don't really respect anyone shooting a puck.
I was going to say, this is what you asked for.
Yeah,
I remember
exactly.
we were talking about like what we were anticipating, and it was like, okay, Hurricanes caught some heat for maybe not having the sexiest series versus the Capitals, and so we just wanted to see like a little bit more oomph. And that was Marchand, if he doesn't get enough credit for the fact that like he all of a sudden pivoted to like a guy who boxes in the off season, it's almost like those weird videos we saw of Rempe working on his fighting skills. Like you low-key feel like, is this what Marchand's been doing? Because he looked like he just switched that mindset when it was time to go. And I was entertained.
No, I loved it. It was very entertaining. And, we'll see what the, I guess, fallout is. I think most teams facing the Florida Panthers know to not let you or not let them get under your skin. You know what I mean? Like that's what they're really good at. I do think teams are guarding against a little bit more. We saw the Toronto Maple Leafs be able to guard against that. But they've not got like one guy that does it. They've just got a bunch of guys who are able to do it. It's funny because I was listening to actually Pete Blackburn's podcast, What Chaos, and they were just talking about like they were using words I can't use, but they were talking about I think like number one a-hole on that team, and then they're like there's a lot of different ones, public enemy number one. There's a lot of guys you can choose from that get under your skin and get in the way, and like that's annoying as hell if you're not a Panthers fan, but if you are, that's what you need, that kind of grit to get through. So we'll see how Carolina responds in a couple of games. But I just watching the game one and just seeing how unbothered they were, I feel like the Panthers are proving that they're the team to beat this year again.
I know, seriously, again. And it's probably deja vu for the Hurricanes from 2023 and just kind of where they're postseason, more so Eastern Conference final numbers and statistics record-wise just continue to plummet, and this is a team that kind of knocked them out really quickly. So I feel like it's that man in the mirror situation that you don't want to repeat. I mean, to favorably give some credit, some polishing to the Hurricanes, there was a number of opportunities that just came from turnovers, and like those are those moments where you're like, all right, you beat yourselves in that instance, you beat yourself in that opportunity. So at least we're gonna have an interesting series because the pushback in the response, you got to anticipate something pretty big if they're capable of it.
Well, we've got another game tonight, that being the Western Conference Final, Game 1. So we're going to dive a little deeper into that one on the other side of the break, guys. We'll see you right back on Hockey Hub. All right, welcome back to the Hockey Hub, Sophia and Kasey. I thought we had like 10 minutes to talk, but we only have like 3 because we went off on the Florida Panthers there. But really quick, and then I want to ask you about your weekend. What are you looking forward to in this Western Conference Final, Game 1?
The main thing I want to see is this series go to 7.
Same.
I want to know if DeBoer can continue his Game 7 success. We were going to ask Coach about that one, but I'm sure he would have backed it up entirely. It's just some of these guys on the Dallas Stars roster, it's not only a second chance, it's redemption, it's all these things. So outside of the Mikko Rantanen tour, it's just like they've been so close, no cigar a number of times. And I feel like it might be a little poetic to see Dallas Stars versus Florida Panthers in the Stanley Cup final because that was how Tampa Bay Lightning won one of their Stanley Cups during the bubble situation. So there's just this weird trailblaze and copy and paste situation taking place. Sorry, Florida Panther fans, not to take away from anything you got going on, but yeah.
I was thinking, and it's a stretch, like 2 series need to end before like this were to happen. But hypothetically, if Carolina made it to the final and then Dallas made it to the final, how crazy would it be for Rantanen to face 2 former teams that he played for in the same year in the postseason? Even though it was like, 12 games or something? It was short. But still, I was thinking about that. That's like a later narrative that we can discuss.
I love that. That's the ultimate X-Flex, honestly.
Yes. Yeah, X-Flex, exactly. All right, I promise you. So, guys, girls watching, Kasey is not from Massachusetts. She's from Florida, where she gets sun all the time. And since you've gotten here, you've had a cold ass winter, and it's been the rainiest May in my time here, even though it's not always warm in May. So rainy. I promise we get some sun. So just bear with us, number one. But number two, on that note, what are you doing for this long weekend where I hope we get a little bit of sunshine?
I'm hoping to take your word for it. Like every time I'm like, oh my gosh, sun, it hits me with the reversal. But no, I enjoy being outside if I'm allowed to. That's my happy place. I've got a dog, so nature walk trails is a big thing for us. Seeing other parts of Boston as I am exploring. But if it turns into a rainstorm, then I will be at home on my couch. I will be giving myself a pat on the back for cooking at home more than ordering out because of the crazy life and schedule that we live. And if you guys haven't watched Mobland, that is what I will be watching and rewatching because Guy Ritchie and what he puts together just has me in a complete chokehold. So that'll be my weekend depending on the weather.
Okay, I love that. I would say if anyone can tweet at her places to go visit in Boston, I keep promising Kasey I would take her around town, but I'm driving to Toronto and I'll be doing the next couple shows from home to see my family for a bit. But I swear when the weather gets better, we'll hit up some patios. We'll do some, there's a place called Blue Hills, by the way. Have you heard of Blue Hills yet? Yeah.
No, I
Have
haven't.
Okay. It's in, I believe, Quincy or anyway, whatever. It's just look it up. It's a great, tiny little mountain, but great for dog walking, and you get nice views at the top. Like I go there all the time. Quick little 30-minute ascend, whatever. Anyway, we're running out of time. We can talk about this offline, but we'll be back on Monday. Everyone have a great long weekend, and we'll see you guys on Monday.